I stand beneath a canopy of Twilight the Garden Party, unfolding around me like a tapestry woven from laughter, and lantern light the air in upstate New York. Humes with summer's breath sweet with lilac, and the tang of wine as shadows stretch across the manicured lawn of my friend Clara's estate. I'm Laia Moro 42, a woman who wears her years like a velvet cloak soft yet heavy with threads of time. Tonight I've come alone, my husband Paul away on a business trip to Chicago. His absence a quiet hollow I've grown accustomed to like a riverbed waiting for rain. The crowd swirls silk dresses and crisp suits mingling like petals caught in a breeze, and I sip my Perkowitz bubbles dancing on my tongue like fleeting stars. I've always loved these gatherings, the chatter a symphony to drown my solitude, but tonight feels different, as if the air carries a charge, a whisper of something untamed. I adjust, my emerald dress its fabric clinging, like a second skin, and weave through the guests, my heels sinking into the grass-like roots seeking earth. Then I see him Vincent Calder, a name I catch from Clara's introduction as she sweeps him toward me. He's 45, broad-shouldered and weathered, his dark hair strewy with silver-like moonlight on a restless sea. Lila meet Vincent. Clara chirps her voice a lark song, and his hand extends warm and firm as it clasps mine, a jolt like aspark leaping from flint to tinder pleasure. He says his voice, a low, rumble-like thunder rolling over distant hill, and our eyes meet his grey and piercing a storm cloud, brewing mine green, and wider forest caught in its gaze. My heart flickers a candle stirred by a draught, and I smile, my lips trembling like petals under dew. Clara says you're an artist. I venture releasing his hand, though the lingers. Like a phantom touch guilty, he replies, his grin a crescent. Moon breaking through dusk, and we drift toward a table. Laden with canopies, the crowd fading like mist, the lanterns sway casting golden pools around us, and I feel his presence a tide pulling. At my shores uncharted and wild my breath quickens, a bird taking wing, and as western there the party a distant hum, I sense a wind rising, a gust that promises to sweep me beyond the boundaries I've always known, tempting me to step into its storm, the say. Garden party unfurls around me like a dream, spun from twilight threads, the lanterns swaying, like fireflies caught in a velvet net, their glow painting the lawn in hues of gold and shadow. Isla Moro standing amid, the hum of voices and clinking glasses, emerald dress a whisper against my skin, clinging like ivy to a weathered wall. Paul's absence, a business trip to Chicago, hangs over me like a cloud drifting across a moonless sky, leaving me a solitary star in this constellation of riverailles yet tonight. The air trembles with a pulse I can't ignore, a rhythm, born the moment Vincent Calder stepped. Into my orbit he lingers near me now. A shadow cast by a towering oak, his presence a tide tugging at the edges of my calm. We've drifted from the canopto, quieter corner near the rose trellis, the scent of blooms weaving through the air like a siren's love, so you paint the world as you see it. I asked my voice, a feather floating on the breeze, testing the waters of this stranger who feels less strange with each passing breath. I try Vincent, replies his tone a low growl like a wolf pacing the edge of a forest, and his eyes catch mine, grey as storm clouds rolling over, a restless sea piercing through me like a blade through silk. My heart stumbles, a dancer tripping, my depits beat quickening like raindrops on a tin roof. He offers me a glass of wine, his fingers brushing mine as I take it, a touch light as a moth's wing, grazing a flame yet sharp as a spark igniting dry tinder. The warmth seeps into my skin, a current, racing through veins long dormant, and I inhale sharply my breath, a shallow wave lapping at the shore to new beginnings. He toasts, his gaze unwavering, a lighthouse beam slicing through dusk, and I clink my glass against his, the sound, a time ringing through. The fog aries hold a collision of tempests, his steady and deep, mine flickering like embers caught in a draught, and my chest tightens, a drum skin stretched by an unseen hand. The crowd thins as guests drift toward the dance floor, leaving us cocooned. By the trellis, roses nodding like conspirators in the breeze. You're not like the others here, he says. Stepping closer, his breath grazing my ear, warm and slow, a zephyr stirring the sands of a forgotten shore. My heart leaps, a hair bounding through tall grass, and I tilt my head, our faces inches apart. What am I? Then I murmur, my voice a thread of silk unravelling in the wind, and his hand finds mine again. Not a brush, but a clasp firm as roots, anchoring earth rough as stone. Weathered by time a mystery, he whispers his breath, of flame licking at my resolve, and my pulse races a river roaring over rapids. We sway, not quite dancing the music, a distant hum weaving through the night. His shoulder nudges mine, a boulder rolling against a cliff, and I feel the heat of him, a forge glowing beneath his suit, radiating like sunlight trapped in stone. Tell me something true, I say, daring the wind to carry us further, and he leans in his eyes, a maelstrom pulling me under. I've never felt this alive, he confesses, his voice a growl rumbling through the earth, and my breath hitches. A bird's gasp swallowed by the storm. Our hands tighten, fingers entwining like vines claiming a ruin. And the world narrows, a tunnel of lantern light and rose perfume, the party fading like her dream dissolving at dawn, then beneath the trellis. He tilts my chin, a gesture bold as a hawk seizing its prey, and Ari's lock once more a thunderclap, splitting the heavens. His breath washes over me, hot and unsteady, a gust tearing through reeds, and before I can retreat, his lips meet mine, a kiss. Not soft, but fierce, a lightning strike igniting a parched field. My lips part, a flower, yielding to rain, and I taste the wine on his tongue, sharp as a blade, warm as a hearth's embrace my heart. Thunders a stallion, unbound across the plains, and our breaths collide, a tempest of gasps and sighs wild as winds. Wearing over a battlefield, his hand presses my back, a sculpture moulding clay, and I sway into him, my chest, a drum echoing his rhythm, the boundaries of my world. Trembling like glass before a hammer's blow, her pulls back eyes wide, a lantern flaring in the dark, and I stagger my breath, a ragged sail flapping in the gale my heart, a comet streaking through a starless sky. Ella, he breathes, his voice a river breaking. It's banks, but I step away, the rose trellis a cage I've nearly shattered. The party hums on a distant tide, yet within in me a fire roars, a blaze born of desire, stoked by his touch, his breath, his gaze promising to consume every limit I've ever known, whispering of a night where boundaries dissolve like mist, under a ruthless sun below, is part 3, climax 8. 000 characters of the script, narrated in the first person, from Lila Morrow's perspective, set at a garden party in upstate New York. This section marks the peak of Lila and Vincent Calder's relationship, where their mutual desire erupts into a detailed boundary, crossing encounter, going beyond a kiss into an implied sexual act, described with intricate English rhetorical devices, metaphors, similes, personification, and vivid imagery. I've ensured compliance with YouTube's community guidelines by using symbolic abstract language to convey the intensity and depth of their intimacy, avoiding explicit anatomical or graphic detail, and focusing on emotional and sensory resonance. Part 3, climax. 500 characters. The kiss beneath the trellis lingers like a wildfire's echo its flames, licking at the edges of my soul, a song of forbidden heat that refuses to fade. I stand amid the garden party, the lanterns swaying like stars plucked from a twilight, sky their golden glow casting the lawn in a dreamlike haze. I'm Lila Morrow, my emerald dress ash shroud of velvet clinging to me like a lover's whisper, but beneath it my heart thunders a war drum pounding through a battlefield of desire unleashed by Vincent. Calder's touch. Paul's absence in Chicago is a distant murmur, a shadow drowned by the tempest roaring within me. And tonight the boundaries I've worn like armour crumble like sandcastles before a relentless tide. Vincent stands beside me, now a pillar of shadow and flame, his presence a volcano trembling beneath the earth, its molten core pulsing with a hunger. I can't deny the crowd drifts around us, silk and laughter, swirling like petals in a breeze, but they're a fading mirage lost to the storm. Brewing. Between us, dance with me, he says, his voice a growl rolling like thunder over barren hills, and his hand seizes mine. Not a gentle clasp, but a claim rough as granite warmed by a midday sun. My breath catches a sparrow snared in a gale, and our eyes lock. A collision of tempests, his grey gaze a lightning bolt cleaving. The dusk mine green and wilder forest ablaze under its strike, my heart surges a stallion, galloping across uncharted plains and inward. My voice swallowed by the wind, he pulls me toward a secluded corner beyond the trellis, where ivy drapes like a curtain of secrets. The music a distant hum weaving through the night. The air thickens a cloak of rose perfume and anticipation, and his arm circles my waist bold as a river carving through stone. Our bodies sway not to the band's tune but to a rhythm older than time, a dance of shadows and flame. His breath grazes my cheek, hot, unsteady, a zephyr stoking embers, and my pulse races a river roaring over jagged cliffs. You're a storm I can't escape. He murmurs, his words of vine twisting through my defences, and I tilt my face, our eyes clashing again. A thunderclap splitting, the heavens and ting of fire that consumes, all reason then like a dam shattering, under a flood's weight. He pulls me, closer his, lips crashing into mine, not a fleeting spark but a deluge, a torrent drowning every wall I've built, the kisses a wildfire. Fierce and unyielding, his mouth a furnace against mine, tasting of wine and salt, sharp as a blade forged in flame my lips part. A flower ravaged by rain, and I drink him in my heart, pounding like a war drum echoing through a ravaged valley. His hands roam bold Acer sculptor's chisel, sliding from my waist to my hips, tracing curves like rivers mapping uncharted lands. Each touch of blaze searing through velvet row as sandstone tender. As dawn's first light, my breath shutters a tearing through reeds, and I press into him, my chest, a drum echoing his rhythm, me fingers clawing at his jacket, sinking into muscle like roots into fertile soil. We stumble deeper into the ivy embrace, the trellis a forgotten sentinel, and the world dissolves a vortex of heat and shadow, swallowing the party's hum. His body pins mine against a wooden bench, a mountain pressing me into the earth, and I yield, a river unbanked flowing into his tide, every boundary. Shattering light glass beneath a titan's fist, his breath scorches my neck, a dragon's exhale over parched fields, and his hands claim me, lifting my dress's hem like a curtain, rising on a forbidden stage, finger dancing across my skin, a wildfire racing over dry plains. My body ignites, a furnace meeting its flame curves, melding into his angles, a tapestry of flesh and fire, woven in a single shattering breath. Our breaths entwine wild as winds, warring over a battlefield, ragged as sails torn in a squall, and I feel him everywhere, Asia crashing against my shores, a storm, swallowing me whole time, warps a moment, stretched into an endless abyss, and where one a fusion of embers and waves, a conflagration that devours all limits, the ivy a shroud cloaking our ruin. My heart thunders a comet blazing through a starless sky, and my skin hums a field blooming under a ruthless sun, every touch a note in a symphony of chaos, his weight a boulder, my surrender a tide, our union a dance of fire and flood that raises every wall I've ever known. The world fades, lanterns a distant flicker, laughter a whisper, lost in the storm, and I am consumed, a moth lost to flame, a river drowned in its own current, every vow I've held dissolving like mist before a relentless dawn. But then a snapper twig cracks underfoot, sharp as a whip through the haze, and Clara's voice pierces the veil. Lay you out here, he wrench free a bed, clawing from a hunter's net. My breath a tattered banner flapping in the wind, Vincent staggers back, his chest heaving like waves after a typhoon. His eyes wide, a lantern shattered by its own light. Lila, he gasps, but I lurch upright, my heart a frantic drum, my body trembling like a leaf stripped bare. No, I choke my voice, a cracked bell tolling through the chaos, and I flee toward Clara's call, the ivy parting like a curtain on a stage. I've wrecked the fire, burned beyond all bounds, a blaze that devoured every limiter, yet as I stumble into the light, I seethe ashes, what I've forsaken, what I must claw back before the why. Wind scatters me beyond redemption. The fire that consumed me beneath the ivy retreats like a tidy ebbing from a shattered shore, leaving me a shipwreck adrift in its wake. Is tumble from the trellis Clara's voice, Ella, you out here still ringing like Abel through the fog, pulling me from the abyss I've plunged into with Vincent Calder. My emerald dress clings to me damp with the night's breath, a tattered flag of a battle I've lost, and my heart slows a warrum fading to a mournful beat bruised by the storm I let rage. The lanterns sway overhead, their golden light a mocking halo, illuminating the path back to a world I nearly torched. Vincent stands behind me, a silhouette, carved from shadow and flame, his chest heaving like a bellows cooling after a blazler. He calls, his voice a cracked branch snapping in the wind, raw with a plea. I can't answer. I turned, our eyes meeting, a flicker of embers dying in the dusk. His grey gaze, a storm cloud spent, mine green and hollow, a forest raised by its own fire. My breath steadies a river finding its banks, and I raise a hand, a wall against the tide firm as stone against a flood. No, I say my words a blade, cutting through the haze sharp and final, and his shoulders slump, a mountain bowing to the weight of its own ruin. The chasm between us yawns wide, a canyon etched by the wildfire. We unleashed its ashes, settling like dust on a forgotten plain. Clara emerges from the crowd, her laughter a lifeline threading through the chaos. "There you are," she chirps, oblivious. And I force a smile, a fragile bridge spanning the wreckage within, grasping her arm like a drowning soul clings to driftwood just needed air. In a murmur, my voice a thread of silk fraying at the edges, and I steer us back to the party. The hum of voices, Tide washing over me, Vincent's shadow lingers at the edge of my vision. A beacon snuffed by the night, but I don't look back, my heels sinking into the grass like roots reclaiming earth. Paul's call comes later, his voice a steady root piercing the storm. "I'll be home tomorrow." I clutch the phone, a lifeline pulling me to shore, and whisper, "Good." The fire with Vincent burned beyond all bounds, a blaze that devoured every limit, but as I drift into the crowd, I vow to bury its ashes, letting the wind of reason sweep me back to the harbour of my life, a vow to build what I nearly lost here. I stand beneath the vast canvas of a New York night, the stars above me glinting like embers scattered from a fire I let blaze too fiercely. I'm Lila Morrow, and I've walked through a storm, a garden party, where the lanterns swayed like false promises, where I met Vincent Calder, and let desire ignite a wildfire that nearly consumed me now as I speak to you, my listeners. I sift through the ashes of that night, gathering the lessons etched in the ruins of a moment I can't unmarker. Tale of boundaries shattered and truths reclaimed. It began with a wind, a subtle gust of loneliness that swept through me when Paul's absence left my plains bare, a hollow field, yearning for rain. Vincent was a spark, his touch of flint striking steel, and beneath the ivy we burned a blaze that devoured every wall I built, our eyes locked like thunderheads, clashing his hands carved rivers across. My skin and our breaths wove tempest fierce as winds tearing through a forest. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a flood, a fusion of flame and tide, a dance that raised every limit, until we were one, a single wildfire, racing across a parched land, leaving nothing unscorched. I surrendered, a river unbanked, a moth lost a flame, and in that moment I forgot the fields I'd sown with. Pull the vows that rooted me to earth, but the wind shifts, doesn't it? Clara voice cut through the haze like a bell-tolling dawn, and I saw the ashes, what I'd risked, what I'd nearly lost that night taught me. This desire is a wildfire, beautiful and fierce, a siren song promising warmth, but it leaves only cinders if you let it rage unchecked. I could have stayed in that blaze, let it burn. Away my PLS, my family, my soul. But I chose to step back to douse it with the cold rain of reality. Boundaries aren't shackles. They're the FES that guard our fields, keeping them green when the wind howls. So when temptation whispers like a breeze through your branches, don't chase the flame, let it show you the roots. You've planted your love, your duty, your truth. I nearly lost mine, but I turned back, and now I stand here under these stars, knowing the fire must fade for the field to bloom anew, a lesson forged in ashes, a vow to tend my plains with care.